Hi, this is Tara. Shall we start with the first sutra of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra as considered through the lens of 6 different commentators and their bhashyas? What is the first sutra? Atha Yoganusasanam. You must have heard this many times before. Most of us are familiar with the first one. What does it mean? Well, that's the question that all the commentators consider. The first is Maharshi Ved Vyasa. And what does he say? He says yoga here stands for samadhi or absorption or union. And this samadhi or absorption is equal to the control over the mind. And what is it that we're controlling when we control the mind? We're controlling the states of the mind. What are the states of the mind? The first is kshipita or fickleness, mudha or sort of dullness, vikshipita, distraction. And he says when we control these that represent also rajas, tamas and sattva, then we come to ekagrata or sort of equanimity, which brings us in confrontation with nirudha, which is the sort of stillness of the mind. And this is what we attain in the spiritual body, swarupa, which if you notice we discussed yesterday in the introduction. A lot of the terms that we mentioned in the introduction are going to keep coming up, so feel free to keep going back to that and sort of, refreshing your memory. And when we attain this Swarupa body and we are confronted with Nirodha, then we are able to attain Samadhi in a state of Sampragnata or concrete Samadhi, in which the external factors have stilled, but the internal ones are still active. And complete yoga or complete communion or union is when we attain asampragnata, where all factors, internal and external, are stilled. And this is true yoga. Now, if you notice, Maharshi Ved Vyasa doesn't really go into explaining why he said Atha or now. But Swami Satyananda believes that that's very important, because he says, why did he say now therefore? Why doesn't he use the word atra or here are, the instructions of yoga? That is indicative, he says, that these instructions are a continuation of previous practices. What are the previous practices? He says under the umbrella of Raja Yoga, when a person has done Karma Yoga, when he has done Jnana Yoga, then now you come to Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. And therefore now you practice. So he says Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, are a part of a larger framework of the Raj Yoga. And he points out that the Yogasutras are very pithy, brief, and incisive. They're instructional. What he's saying is Patanjali is not inviting you to have a discussion on the sutras. He's giving you instruction. He's giving you command. Here, take, do. He's not saying, here, what do you think about this? Shall we discuss this a little? No, he's saying, do this. Therefore, yoga is practice. It is just get down to it and do it. Okay. Swami Vivekananda says that he translates the line as now concentration is explained. He treats it as a simple introductory line and he doesn't get into it. He uses it as a bridge to get into the second sutra. However, he points out that now means a moment of time, that use this time, be here, be present, activate. And in which we see that we are, and how do we use this time? To see that we are both the outcome and the conclusion, the outcome and the manifestation of an absolute condition. So use it to see that where we are coming from and where we are going to is one and the same. BKS Iyengar also believes that the word now is very significant, but how he uses it is not to say that this is under the umbrella of Karma Yoga, but in terms of immediacy. Do it now, start it now, in this moment. Don't waste any time. Now it is clarified. And he says it is also a continuation of his previous treatises on grammar and Ayurveda. So it is a completion of that holistic cycle of body, speech and mind. And Atha is also the beginning of the Brahma Sutra, and hence it is a proclamation, BKS Iyengar says, of the desire to know Brahman. Yoga, according to BKS Iyengar, is a subjective art, philosophy, and science. It has many meanings, but it is in the Yoga Sutra that the state of samadhi, or the indivisible state of existence, is sort of fructified. So his definition is that it means the disciplines of integration are here and now being expounded to you through experience and given to humanity. So it is more of a declamation, it is a proclamation to the world that here, now, take it and begin. Osho translates it as now is the discipline of yoga. And to him, now is very, very significant in a very different way. What he says is, most people, if you have come to yoga in search of yoga, you have come after a state of wandering in the world. You're tired, you've been broken, and you have sort of exhausted yourself, spent yourself in the pleasures of the world and of the senses. And so now you've come here, and what Patanjali is saying, now that you have come, here, take it. Here is the tablet, here is the balm, here is the salve, here is the solution, use it. And now that you have come, see that from this moment your life is going to change. From the moment you come to yoga, your future is going to be very different because your path is very different. And most of us who are serious practitioners of yoga will tell you that this is very, very true. And he says, he narrates a very interesting story here. He says yoga, the purpose of yoga is to center yourself. And in that context, he tells a story in which this man goes to Buddha and he says, I agree with you, life is full of suffering, and, tell me what I can now do to save the world. And the Buddha doesn't say anything. So his disciple Ananda says, why aren't you helping this man? And the Buddha says, because I don't see him being centered. He's looking at others, but there's nothing in him which is centering him. And Osho says that this is what the first sutra is trying to explain to you, that all of us who want to, be do-gooders in the world, go and save the world and save others and do charity and practice compassion and all of that, we are very willing to lead without being willing to follow. And the essence of yoga is to first be a disciple, is to first be humble, is to first learn, and first to put oneself through practice. Otherwise, the work that we do in the world can be very misguided, and sometimes we can create more harm than good. So I think that's a very interesting analysis. And Barbara Stoller Miller, of course, uses this just as a simple introduction to the text, and she translates the first 4 sutras together. So we'll look at her more in depth when we reach the end of the 4th sutra. So I hope this was useful to you. Do join in for sutra number 2 tomorrow. Thank you for listening.